Well, congrats.
But cool. I'm looking forward to doing this.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for being here.
And he's asleep in the other room.
Okay.
I think this mic's quite good at not picking up loads of shit, but just flat. If he starts crying and you can hear it, just let me know.
Okay, and it won't bother me at all. As a female, I think it's adorable. So you're totally fine. Oh, hi, you're listening to Service from Hell, a podcast featuring people that are currently in customer service positions or the lucky few that got out and all of the good, bad, and infinitely irritating things that go along with that work. I'm actor, writer, and comic Kate Gaffney, and I'm uniquely qualified to discuss this as I used to work at a very busy and very popular comedy club in Los Angeles. And at least one of you listening right now has probably grabbed me and told me you were ready to order when I was running around like a crazy person. So let's eat. I'd like to welcome our guest, LA-based comic and not Coldplay frontman Chris Martin. He is quoted as being described as one of the UK's best young observationalists, according to The Guardian, which is nothing to scoff at. Martin's Edinburgh Comedy Festival shows have repeatedly sold out with dates added, which y'all have to understand how hard that is to do. His personal anecdotal comedy has earned him numerous invitations to the New Zealand and Melbourne comedy festivals. His international touring continues to yield a diverse, unique, and growing collection of stories Martin loves to share with audiences all around the world. Chris has toured the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. His TV credits include The Late Late Show with James Corden, I Think You Should Leave on Netflix, and Live at the Comedy Store. Chris joins us today to promote his sophomore album, Above Ground Comedian, which seems to have gone much better than his first album. We'll discuss that, I'm sure. I better know Chris from meeting him right now in real time with all of y'all. So, Chris, do you miss the UK? How are audiences different in Los Angeles? Why LA over NYC? Tell us.
Oh, just very simply because of the weather. Literally, coming from the UK, I couldn't move to a city that was going to have just as terrible a winter as I had at the time for 31 years of my life. So me and my wife moved here. We're like, we've got to go to Los Angeles. Just jump straight over, get the sunshine. Industry stuff kind of, but mainly so that it's what are we in mid-February right now?
Yeah,
mid-February, and it is, I don't know Fahrenheit yet still, but it's 19 Celsius, and that's the
about
hottest
60
day of the summer in London. So,
is it really? Oh.
No, I mean, thanks to climate change, we're hitting 30. You're having some crazy temperatures, but there's no air conditioning in London, so it's just not ready for that. So 19 is a lovely day in the UK and quite rare until about May.
Yeah, I think that's about 65 Fahrenheit, but I'd have to fact check myself. I'm trying to learn Celsius, so we're in the same boat. So I'm guessing it's about 65.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so, so were you doing comedy in the UK prior to coming here?
Yeah. I did stand up for my whole 20s in London.
Oh wow!
I was at Newcastle University for a little bit, and I started stand up there, pretty much. And then I moved to London and did the circuit and did Edinburgh a few times, and it was great. And then it was good. I love the gig in the UK. But my wife, who I write for TV with, but also she's an actor, she'd been in a couple of shows in the UK, and then we were always intrigued by America. A lot of British comics don't come over because you can make quite a good living just doing the circuit in the UK. But we always, I don't know, just growing up, I just watched Eddie Murphy Raw, and I just always thought like the very, very best comics are in America, were the birthplace of stand-up. So yeah, we just wanted to come, and we've been here we have a small dog now, and we have a child now who is technically American, which is quite weird because none of us are. And a lot of my stand-up is, making fun of Americans. And now I have one, so I don't know whether that means I'm more qualified to do it or I should do it less. I don't know.
More, definitely more. Okay.
Good.
So you started at university doing stand-up, which is early days to start because it's a lot of rejection and it's a lot of pain in the beginning. So were you just Teflon by the time you were 30 of like, oh no, I know what it's like to bomb so many times?
Funny, what you're saying is kind of accurate. The whole industry is so much rejection. The amount of rejection you have to deal with just weekly as a comic, on stage and off stage, is so much that actually, it's like my dad once said to me, he was just like, he just gets if you get one rejection and you have like a different life where, you just have a job and you don't really get rejected that much when you have a family and a job. So he was just like, oh, just wondering, because I hate being rejected. But I'm just so like, I don't know if this is good advertising. I'm very used to being rejected. Almost too used to it. But yeah, no, it's good. It means you just don't take anything too seriously, I think. You do stuff, you bomb. I've had so many, starting out. It's fun. I was thinking about some shows recently. It's like, it's just so hard to like get a room of people to find you funny. It is really hard at the start, and find you funny and interesting, and especially in the UK where the crowds really let you know if they think you're not funny. In America, Americans are just they'll have a good time whether there's a stand-up on the stage or not. They'll make their own fun. In the UK, they will shout how bad they think you are at you, and sometimes throw stuff.
I can confirm. I went to Fringe Festival and saw a couple shows where I was like, oof, oof. And the audiences were a bit more forgiving because it was sort of an international mix. But for the comics that they loved, like I got to see Tim Devine, and I don't, if for people who don't know him, he's all wordplay and puns and just.
Tim Vine?
Tim Vine, yeah. And he
actually did wordplay on his name there.
Look at me go. I did that on purpose. And it was wild to see how people were so enthralled. And I kept thinking, I was like, oh, this is such a different style. But being able to adapt to overseas markets and here, even just different cities within the US, I feel like require different types of comedy. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah. In the summer before I recorded this album, I did, I think, where was I? I did like just outside Tampa. I did like Jamestown. I did Baltimore before I recorded it in DC. And that was such a different vibe. They're so close to each other, but just so different. That's why comedy's interesting. You're like, the cities were like, 40 minutes drive from each other, and the audiences couldn't have been more different. Admittedly, the Baltimore show, I did do a late show on a Thursday in, I forget the neighborhood, but the person was like, we don't normally do late shows. And I realized why. And that is because that was the drunkest people I've ever, and like I said, I've gigged in the UK and that's some pretty drunk people, but Baltimore, they were drunk, and then they were just like, well, this is just a conversation for an hour. And I was like, it's not, I have a whole show prepared. And they wanted to, just every time I said any punchline, they'd be like, sir, I just want to, this is, so after 10 minutes in my head, I was just like, this is game over. The gig is a waste of time. I knew at least that the recording in DC wouldn't be as bad as that gig. That was genuinely the worst gig I've had in about 10 years. But.
Oof, that's so, it's funny, but I'm sorry you walked through that. Can I ask, as far as, because I know with Fringe, for people who haven't been, we've talked about it on the show before, but there are thousands, literally thousands of shows that you are contending with, or against, I guess. So how did you, I guess because you were already plugged into the UK market, it was a bit easier to sell tickets, but what was it that you think you did differently? Because I saw enormously talented people with 3 people in the room with me. So audience size isn't necessarily the indicator. So what was it that worked for you?
I was at the time I was with a different agent who I will shout her out actually because she was great for my first year anyway. It was brilliant. Corey Maguire. I think she has her own agency now. But anyway, she was great. She just had done Edinburgh for years and coming out of I think university, she just kind of understood how it worked. So it was about getting reviewers in super early. I think they came all into the preview shows. So I had the show like as ready as I could have it. And then like the first couple of days of the festival was kind of previews. So like get reviewers in, get some 5-4-star reviews up. And then I had some really good reviews for the first couple of days. And also it was my first year. So I had like several years of stand-up I could put together to make the hour. Once you go back again, it's like I guess I'm doing a second album here. So it's harder. You got to generate the material quicker. But so it was a very solid stand-up hour, I think. And just good press and great flyers. There's like so many people up there that help, like unsung heroes, the sort of flyers and stuff. And then, once you start well and it sells out, then, humans are just like, it's sold out, must be good. It's the same as you go brunch. It's like, that's good because there's a big line. You're like, it's just eggs. I was just doing stand-up. There's so many other good stand-ups who you probably could see and would be better than me. But so that was a really good start to my Edinburgh festival. And people kind of keep coming back to see you. And it's always been pretty good to me, but I haven't been there since 2017, nearly 7 years now.
Oh, wow. Do you think you'll go back?
I keep thinking I will, and then I keep thinking, it's just because it's changed a bit. You used to have to do the whole month, right? A whole month of the same show every day for 28 nights or whatever, with maybe one night off. And the last time I did it was really fun, but I was just like, I don't know whether, I don't know. I was like, I think I need to have a show I need to have a show that says something, if that makes sense. I think there's nothing wrong with stand-up. I love stand-up. Just doing funny stand-up is great. But I think Edinburgh, they really love it when you have like, you know, people have some life tragedy that you can talk about, but also make amusing, or have a really weird kind of, I don't know what the word is, like shtick, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I remember like Boy with Tape on His Face did amazingly one year because he was in the comedy world and then he's got tape on his face and he does street performer stuff. So immediately it looks different to stand-up. So people are like, well, this is different, we should see it. But yeah, I love stand-up and I think it's great, but I don't necessarily know how great it is as a festival if you just want to do an hour of stand-up.
I totally agree.
As a British person who, I think if you come as American, you're a bit different. But yeah, if something horrible happens in my life, then I will write a show about it, and then I'll probably take it to Edinburgh.
Okay, so I hope
hopefully nothing horrible.
Yeah,
happens.
I hope you don't go back. That's what we've landed at. Okay, cool. And then just to get us talking about your album, so it is called Above Ground Comedian. Why is it called that, and what are you most excited about off the album?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, I named it. I'm sure some people have a real interesting origin story. Mine was because I was gigging in the DC Comedy Loft. The show was in the DC Comedy Loft. And it's called The Loft, but I was in the cellar downstairs. And it's a very good room for comedy, but it was actually quite like an Edinburgh room. It's a small, compact room. So actually I recorded on the Friday and the Saturday, and the Friday show was fun, but I just did the hour. And then the second night I was like, I think I need to talk about how I feel like people, like some people knew the venue, but I think some people like me were like, this is not a loft. This is not a loft. It's called the DC Loft, and I'm in some weird dungeon. And then I just started riffing about that at the beginning, and then I riffed about, hopefully if this goes well, I can move above ground and become an above ground comedian. And it was just a funny phrase. And I thought, because I'm called Chris Martin, just if I have comedian in it, then people will know. Well, you would hope. People are pretty dumb. They just still think I'm him because I look enough like him and have the same accent. But yeah, so I just called it Above Ground Comedian. It's just an hour of stand-up about what's been happening in the last couple of years over here. And I just thought it was a funny title. But I wish there was like and it's called Above Ground Comedian because at the end you realise that in a way, all of us live above ground. I don't know. But yeah, it's a funny title.
That's what I'm going to tell people. You know, what's funny is I thought because of the London having such a phenomenal underground system and like the tube, I was like, oh, this is like a little cheat to where he's from. That's very sweet. And you're like, no.
It works on many levels. It works on many levels, literally at many levels above and below ground. But
see what you do.
There we go.
There he goes, Tim Vine.
Tim Vine would love that joke, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so and then where can people get it? I think it's. I'm so sorry. I think I had it down as March 8th. Is that when it's coming out?
No, it's actually February.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's next Friday. Well, I don't know what day this goes out, but it is on February 23rd, which is a Friday the 23rd, in a week from today's recording. I don't know when this comes out, but that's.
Oh wow!
People understand calendars. People understand diaries. So it comes out on the 23rd of February. You can pre-order it on Apple Music. I think that's the thing now. It used to be called iTunes, right?
Yeah, it's Apple.
It.
Okay.
That's the best place to get it from if you want to get it. Best place for me, for you to get it from. I'm sure some of you are on other streaming music sites, but they're less good for me personally.
I'm glad you said that. I didn't know that. That's really good to know.
Oh, it's just because it goes up in a chart and it looks good if it's in the chart. But honestly, if anyone listens to it how or any way they can absolutely listen to it at the most convenient streaming site.
But we have lovely audience members who are very dedicated to like supporting the comics we have on. So Apple Music, folks, if you are listening right now, turn it on Apple Music.
I think you get actually a free joke before it comes out.
Pre-order free jokes.
Fish.
Okay.
Well, you get like not a free, you pay for it, but you get an early release joke and it's about fish. And, people like the service industry, I feel that dovetails quite nicely.
I love that. Okay. Well, I want to get, because Chris mentioned he has a new 5-month-old baby. So we have to get to the questions so that y'all don't get mad at me. So we're going to get there. Okay. So we hope you enjoyed your apps. Let's move on to the entrees after a quick break. We're back. Now it's time for the entrees. Okay, we always start with the same first question. Chris, what was your first job ever where the government was taking taxes out of your income, or just the first like customer service job that you can really think, oh, I did this?
Well, actually, I think it actually was the first job where the government took money from me, because they had a couple of little, like before I turned 18, I had a couple of little side weird jobs before that. Like I used to deliver cell phones to my uncle, which sounds like the most dodgy thing in the world.
Yeah,
but,
it does.
It was weird. It was a business where it was actually quite smart. When was that? 20 years ago. How old am I? 37, 20. I was about 40, 23 years ago. You remember when you used to use a phone in another country and it cost $1 million?
Oh, it was so expensive. Yes.
And still now it's quite expensive. But so he did this thing where he basically rented mobile phones to businessmen when they're in London, which is kind of genius at the time. But like,
yeah.
So I would just get on the tube and I would just, I would go below ground and I would deliver
underground
mobile phones to these hotels, and he would charge them, I don't know how much. But anyway, he then luckily sold that company, I want to say like maybe 3 or 4 years later, which was really smart, because then it became everyone just took their phones on vacation and used them. So he sold it for like a lot of money just before it became the most obsolete business in the world. So well done him. But that was quite funny, because I was like 14, little skinny, posh, like London kid with just like bag of mobile phones. Like I'm like a roast chicken in a movie to like a mugger. Do you know what I mean? It was just so easy. So delicious for them seeing me. Anyway, that was not quite service industry.
No, it is. It is. No, it totally is. Yeah, because
okay, yeah, I guess it was delivering it to people. It was a service. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you ever get mugged?
Do you know what? I actually did get mugged on the tube, but luckily it was like a very lazy mugger. I had a bag with literally, probably at the time, £2,000 worth of mobile phones. And went, "Have you got any money on you?" And I just sort of did the calculation and had a £5 note in my pocket. And I went, "There you go." And he went, "Yeah." And he thought he'd done very well there. I want to be like, "Mate, if only you could look inside, if only you had X-ray vision, you would be very annoyed with yourself." Go back to mugging school, sir.
That you had notes. That's good when you were underground. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So always if you've got a bag of mobile, some life advice. If you've got a bag of mobile phones, guys, always have £5 in your pocket so you can palm off. You can, bribe a mugger. Yeah, that was a weird job. I did that for two summers actually, and he paid me in cash, and I got really good at knowing how to get around on the tube, which was great.
That's invaluable.
Very useful life skill.
Yeah, it sure is.
It's very confusing. I'm sure you've been, right?
Yes, it's very confusing. I would stay on the same routes even when my friends were like, "Oh, there's a faster way to get to wherever." I'd be like, "Nope, I know exactly how to take."
And no one in London wants to help in America. No offense, but
they don't.
I'm just. You could be like, as soon as you say Leicester Square instead of Leicester Square, they don't want to push you on the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough life.
Yeah. That's a totally accurate statement. You said it. Okay. So you did that for 2 summers whilst you were in high school, but y'all don't call it high school.
I did that for 2 summers. Yeah, I did that for 2 summers as like a little side hustle job. And then I think in the UK, when you turn 16, you can work. I think you can work a job from 16, but you can't work in a pub till 18. So then I think the way this worked was, I think I worked at I worked at Gap, the clothes store, from like when I was a 16-year-old boy. Like, why are they letting a 16-year-old boy work in that shop?
Why are they letting 16-year-olds do anything? Why are they allowed to drive? How are they allowed to exist? It's not just just 16-year-olds full stop. They're a mess.
But especially boys, though.
Yeah.
I feel like our mental maturity is subpar at that age, and probably still is now in my 30s. But I used to do that at Gap, the clothes store, and it was just like I really struggled to I really feel sorry for any of my managers at that type of job. I actually really liked delivering mobile phones on the tube, because you're given a task, you just get on the tube. I guess I was listening to a Walkman or a Discman at the time. It's fun. Read a book. I like people, so I actually do like face-to-face like interactions. I like that. I like talking to people. I am very sociable. I have some stand-up about this at the moment. That's not in my album, but how I am the guy who makes new male friends on vacation, who most people don't like, but I'm that guy.
That's so fun.
I don't cheat on my wife,
Yeah.
but I do need to get the endorphin kick. So I get it from befriending big guys. I don't know why. It's probably worse than cheating on them. So I'm actually, in terms of working at a store, I'm actually pretty good at like, I'm like, hey, do you need any help? All that stuff. Very good at that. But when there's the thing I could never do is when there's nobody there and there's literally nothing to do. There is nothing to, everything's folded. When stuff's not, you got to fold it. But if there's no one in there, stuff's folded. But you're being paid. So then your manager's like, we can't just stand around and talk to the staff. But I do actually think it's good to let the staff just talk to each other. There's nothing to do because it keeps the morale up. But they're always like, well, you're paid. I don't know at the time. Do you know how much it was? I don't know how much those jobs were. It was probably £4 an hour. £4.
You can't live on that.
Yeah. I mean, back then a pint of beer was, you could get a pint of beer for £2.
But
So
Chris, you're not 100. £4 an hour. You can't live on. I mean, even like 20 years ago, you couldn't live on that.
I know, it was pretty I mean, this is the thing in the UK, because there's no tipping, right? So I really noticed this, and sorry if this is segueing a little bit, but it's related. Whenever I go back to the UK from Los Angeles, the thing I always notice is how bad the service is. And then the reason I notice it is bad is because we don't have tipping. So what that means is over here, you guys, I'm sure some people listening are this, you're dedicated servers, and there's some amazing servers here. You get tipped. You can make quite a good living as a professional server. In the UK, because there is no tipping, you get literally, like I talk about, like a 16-year-old boy shouldn't be working in Gap. You get 18, 19-year-olds working in a pub. It's their first kind of job, I guess, for a lot of people. And they don't care. They're not getting tips. They don't care. I was in a pub in London when I went back last Christmas. And I really hate rules that make no sense. And I sound a bit like my dad, who's just like, we live in a nanny state. It's all stupid rules from the government. But I was at a crowded pub in central London to meet some friends. And I said, hey, can I get a burger? And he went, where are you going to sit? There's no tables. So I said, I'll just eat it at the bar. He goes, you can't do that. I go, not even like, I'm so sorry to say this, but he just went, can't do that. I went, what do you mean I can't do it? He goes, health and safety. And I go, what? He goes, if someone sitting on the bar has an allergy to the thing you're eating, and I went, really? And I went, all right. I said, okay, but I do want to eat food, right? I want to give you money to buy a thing. But they don't care. No one cares. They're not like, because they're just like, they would rather do less work and make no money for the establishment. So then I said, what if I order food and I won't eat at the bar? He goes, where are you going to eat it? I go, I'll stand there. I'll stand 4 yards away. Can I stand there in the middle of the pub and eat it? And he went, let me ask the manager. Brings out like a 20-year-old, like 1 year older. And the guy, again, they almost wanted me to like not do it. And I'd worked out the flaw in their system. They couldn't, it was legally allowed. And then I did it. And then I ended up, there was one chair free. So I used the chair and put it there as a table. And as the guy brought it to me, he was like, good luck. Like he wanted me to fail at eating the burger.
That's so insane.
So weird, isn't it? So, how did I get into that? But basically, yeah, good service is really undervalued in the UK.
You were talking about how your manager at the Gap would have probably hated you because because like you just wouldn't busy yourself with other things and
yeah, I was like I just wouldn't go like and also the other thing I wouldn't go like they send you to the storeroom to do some stuff
stupid task.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But then the thing actually that I realized was very annoying is I actually think I've got quite a good vibe. I got a good radar for what someone wants. So when you're in a shop, there's one person. And sometimes when I'm in a shop, I want some help. Sometimes I just want to just leave me alone so I can look at some clothes. So I'd see someone, I kind of like go, I feel like they're just in their own space. Maybe do a check-in, but they're like, you got to go to it. You got to go. It's like, you don't have to go. You don't have to go. Do you know what the only thing that was exciting about that job was I discovered that at Gap, they didn't have security cameras at the Gap in London. And their philosophy was, we want it to feel like a welcoming, like non-judgmental place. And that just meant most days, crackheads would come in and steal so many hoodies from the front table.
All the hoodies.
And that was interesting. So I was young. I was like, why are crackheads stealing like Gap clothes? And you realize they'll just steal anything that they can resell. But yeah, it was, I apologize to to people who are in a terrible situation where they have to resort to stealing hoodies. But
well, it's good because that's a
It was very
large.
exciting when someone stole the hoodies, though. That was exciting. It was like, yeah, someone stole some hoodies, and they're like, none of us are gonna. No one's chasing someone with a hoodie. No one's chasing someone who wants hoodies that badly.
Well, it's interesting because former guest of the podcast, Ithamar Enriquez, what up, Ithamar? He worked at the Gap in, whatever that main street is in Chicago, the Michigan Avenue, I think, that gets all of the foot traffic. And he said it was actually a Gap corporate policy where they couldn't ever accuse someone of stealing. So if someone just took the shirts, shoved them in their pants, and were walking around with their middle fingers up, they weren't technically stealing until they crossed the threshold to go outside. And they had a long-standing policy that you couldn't chase people. So he said as soon as people realized that, they were getting robbed, like jacked every day. And he was like, we would just be like, please don't steal that, but okay if you're gonna. And so I guess, you were doing what the Gap corporate policy was, because that's I'm assuming we're talking about the same Gap that is the American brand.
It's exactly the same. Now you think about it, the Gap was very popular 20 years ago. Yeah. And now I've got to say, it's not that, I don't see it as often. And do we think that's because their profits got hugely dented by their terrible policy towards theft?
I mean, it couldn't have helped. They just closed their flagship store in San Francisco, which is in the middle of like the crisis. And so,
that's going to be, if that's, they surely have to have changed the policy by now. Surely.
I mean, especially when your flagship store is in the center of one of the worst, whatever. Let me not get sad.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, that's very bleak, that part of the world. But yeah, yes, it was weird. They always made you wear these headsets, which was quite funny to me. Wear a headset like I was a bouncer at a nightclub, which ironically had none of the powers of the bouncers we just discussed. It always felt a bit much. It's like, can we? It's like, what? You don't need a headset. We're working in a clothes store, guys. We're not.
I can talk to you.
SAS. We're not like bodyguards for the freaking president or something. But yeah, there was that, and you had to wear clothes from the Gap.
That's
obviously. And then do you know what the worst thing about the job was? I really said this to my wife the other day. I had a flashback to it because a song came on, and they used to have the same, and it would have been, I'm sure, America and the UK, the same album. You would have to play it for 8 weeks, the same album, and that's the only music they would let you play. And I think it would end up playing 8, so the album would last probably an hour. You listen to it 6 times on loop a day for 8 weeks. And I will say this, Finley Quaye, Your Love Gets Sweeter Every Day, is such a good song that it's the only song that I don't want to kill myself to when I hear it come on. And that was played every day for... what was that one? People all over the world join hands and start a love train. Was that on?
People in the world. George Benson? No, I don't know who that is.
Actually, just throw my laptop out the window if it goes any further than that. But Finley Quaye, got to say, good song, because that's the one song I remember and don't hate.
Did you ever have how long did you work at the Gap?
Do you know what? So this was interesting. I worked there, I guess, for a summer before I turned 16 to 18. And then weirdly, after I finished school, I had a gap year, as we call it, and I was going to go travel. I went to Thailand and Laos and Cambodia and New Zealand, and I saved up money I worked at a pub, which we can talk about in a sec, and then I did work at Baby Gap, where I'm from, which was even worse than Gap, because that was also people, something, it was just, the woman who was my manager was, I get it, she's like, that's her career, she wants to do it, and I get, it must be very frustrating when you have that career and you've employed an 18-year-old who just couldn't give less of a damn about anything. I wasn't like a bad employee. I was just like to talk to people, and I guess just easy go. Like, just didn't care about it as much as some person whose career it was. And then once I remember got like a warning for coming in with a very creased T-shirt. They made me go into the basement and iron it like a little boy. Yeah, my punishment. So now I just do a job where I can wear what I want, because probably made to iron stuff in the basement.
So the Gap forced you into comedy. That's good. Yeah. Okay, so then you lasted at the Gap for like a summer. So then that was during university. Is that same time, or was this after?
No, this is pre-university. So I did it. I think we did a summer job between one of the summers, like a school summer holiday, and then after school I had a year of doing nothing before I went to university. So that's when I worked in my local pub, and then Gap, Baby Gap, and then I went to Thailand and got very drunk for a few months.
That'll do it. And okay, so I want to understand. So you, during that time that you were working, were you, at least specifically at the Gap, were you having to spend, because £4 an hour is nothing. So were you having to spend a couple entire paychecks on wardrobe, or did you figure out like, okay, I'm going to buy the set? Because the way that Ithamar explained it was you had to wear the current trend. So
yeah, you had to wear the current, and they would get it discounted, but you still have to pay for it, which is a real. That's when you think I hate that policy. That's just such a I'll give you 40%. Just what are you talking about? Just give it to me for free.
I work here.
The police don't have to pay for their uniforms, do they? That'd be crazy.
Yeah, and also you're giving the crackheads every single hoodie we have on display. Why do I not get a free T-shirt? That's insane.
Yeah, can I get? Yeah, maybe I should have come in.
Yes, and stolen.
They stole it, run off, and then I come in the next day in a brand new outfit.
Exactly.
Like, can't touch me, guys. Corporate policy loophole. Oh yes.
How did you go under as a business? We don't understand that right there. Okay, so after the Gap, you do your Gap year, Tim, and then you end up coming back to where was the pub where you were?
So the pub was actually I used to in the UK we all drink underage.
What? Chris.
Yeah, mate. And our age to drink is 18. So. You know, like in America, like you guys 21, so people are like
19
at college, underage drinking.
Yeah.
And we're like, you guys are amateurs. We've been drinking since we were 14 years of age. That's why we all got such blotchy skin. So we, I used to drink in a pub near where I live, and it's called the Tabard. It was it was very good for drinking underage. At the time, the fake ID of choice was you got this, there was a, what was it called? Star Travel, I think it was called. There was this sort of travel agents where you would actually book these round the world trips. They used to, again, I think they're probably obsolete now because of the internet, but it used to be like probably where I actually booked my tickets to go to Thailand and Laos and Cambodia. You go kind of hop around the world and you go there, and it was kind of more like young person aimed travel agent. But also what you could do is get student ID from there. And the way you would do that is you would have a letter from your school saying your age. So we would all just put the letterhead from our school, sign it with a made-up teacher, take it in, and we'd have Star Travel. We'd all have the same very fake ID from about the age of 14. And when we're talking, like I said, young boys, like girls at 14 can look older, right? But I feel like a 14-year-old boy looks 7 years of age.
Yes.
So look, all these pubs knew. They all knew. They didn't care.
They just
So I used to drink in this place called the Tabard, and it was a weird mix. It was like old man regulars, but it was next to a drama school. So you would have like 22-year-old like people like that with like old
rude,
that's
so
the best way of
rude.
describing. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised by the note I hit because I'm terrible at singing.
Well done.
And there was just old guys who drunk there, who I then discovered when I worked there. They would do that weird thing where you'd have pint glasses like a normal bar, like you would have in most American pubs. They just have a pint, like a straight pint glass. And there would be certain guys who would have their own specific, like, tankard glasses of a handle. They'd be like, I need it from my tankard up there. And you're like, you were just so sweet that's
this is your day.
Gonna make or break the taste of this warm beer. But I worked there for 2 months because I was like, oh, cool, I drink there all the time. It's fun. But the landlady that ran it was so, I mean, talk about like how ridiculous it is paying for your own uniform at the Gap. I'm a big believer, and I can say this because I don't own a big corporation, but I think this relates to comedy. I think if the staff are happy, the vibe is happy, and everyone is happy.
That's
so if
it.
I go to a comedy club and I go, hey, can I have a drink of water, or can I have a pint or whatever? And they go, yeah, no worries. What else do you want? Can I get you stuff? Then I'm excited. I'm like, they're so nice. I'm really excited to do the show. And then the audience are in a good mood because they've been served by nice people, and everyone's just like a lovely circle of niceness. Whereas if you're like trying to save pennies on stuff, it just annoys the staff. So then you just don't care about them. You don't want to work for these people. So I was working at the Tabard, and I literally, I didn't want a beer. I wanted a lime like soda with lime juice in it, right? And she would charge me 35p for the lime juice, and I was like, this woman Trish is such an arsehole. She's making me pay for this lime juice. And And it's done because actually it's clever. If you give what I realized, because I had a friend who used to work at a bar till much older, I realized if you give your staff free drinks, like a few free drinks, you'll actually end up making money, because what happens is they then stay there after work and they start spending. And I realized actually it's a very clever system, because my mate used to work at Vodka Revolution, this sort of chain in the UK, and he would just spend his whole paycheck after work at the bar. It's cheaper than normal, so you end up having 8 pints instead of 4 pints. So anyway, that's if I ever owned a bar, I'd be very generous, but have a cap on it, and then I'd give you 50% off, but then I know you're still going to spend all your paycheck there, so you're basically getting free labor.
So your business model is keep everybody drunk. Your uncle's was employ family members, but yours is just keep them drunk. Yeah. It's good. This is a good
drunk.
Yeah.
Keep everyone drunk, keep everyone happy.
It's a good.
Yeah, I don't know. Does that come up a lot on this? Because do you agree?
I do.
Just like
having worked at
people a bone.
Yeah, having worked at a comedy club where I always felt like I was fighting with the customers because they always wanted to argue about the 2 drinks. Then I was fighting with management because they never wanted to have your back. I just always felt like I was fighting. And so I brought that energy to every single table. As much as I wanted to have fun and have a good time, it's a comedy club. And that's what I thought it would be. When I would have to go, because it's not my nature to be combative. I'm a people pleaser. So to have that armor on all the time, it just drained everything out of me. And so the job wasn't actually all that fun for me, because it was always like, okay, gear up, let's fucking go to work. And it's like, I'm serving beer and there's comics on stage. Why do I have to fucking be like this? It's just,
I know.
Yeah. And that translates. I felt like the comics, when you're in that energy, that goes on to stage. It just does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
Right. It's happy. There must be a rhyme. Happy workplace, happy something. I don't know.
Make money. Happy workplace. Make your money. It's just.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's amazing how I just think keep the staff happy is
full stop.
It doesn't take a lot to make the staff think you're like a nice boss, in my humble opinion.
Give a shit.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
just care.
That was 2 months, and I quit because I just got so annoyed with her. I was just like, and I literally was making £4 something an hour, and I worked out like I'm making 2 pints an hour. It's not. I
feel like this is simply not worth it.
2 pints an hour is not enough.
It's not.
So
okay.
And then I think this counts. Does this count as service industry? I used to be one of those charity fundraiser people.
Ooh, I think it does. Yes. Were you cold calling people and saying like, please donate?
No, I was in the street.
Oh, it's worse. It's so much worse.
It's the worst, yeah.
Oh.
So I always, everyone hates those people.
Yes.
I was actually very good at it, though. I was very good at it. I got the company record one day.
What? How? Because you look like Chris Martin, and you would say that was your name. Like, what was? How were you good at it?
Do you know what? It was for like it was a university summer just to make money, like, well, everything you're doing at that age. For me was just
beer
funding
money,
alcohol.
Yeah, of course.
It was funding alcohol. It's funny, but yeah. So you work for this charity, and it first time you do it, you're like, it's so hard. But it really made me learn a few things, which were like, it's talk about rejection.
It gets
just like
better at comedy.
For rejection,
it sure does.
If you get 2 people in an 8-hour day to sign up to give money to charity, that's good. One day I managed to get nine people. It was 9. It was in a Southend in Essex. And actually, it's not that affluent an area, because what you'd notice if you go to the affluent areas, no one wants to give any money.
Isn't that funny?
Mums. I know, it's single mums, and it's sort of you sort of kind of flirt in a weird way. Not like, you don't like overstep the mark, but you're just super friendly, make people feel good about themselves. Little things I learned were like, when someone's walking towards you, don't try and stop them by like backing up. It's like an energy thing. If you just take a step in their direction, it's like an interesting sort of psychological thing that
balance is the power goes off balance slightly, because they think they're in an energy and you're like no.
Yeah, but it was really, people hate those people. But then I always think, like, if people gave enough money to charity, then we wouldn't have to have those people. But people don't give enough money to charity, so that's why I signed up for one like a few months ago in Studio City. Actually, some person was like doing it, and I was like, and then I'm like, and then I checked, because you never know how much is going to the charity, but it was like 90% is going to the charity.
Holy shit, that's really good.
Yeah, so
but you got 9 in a day, and that you set the company record by getting 9 in a day. Nine
people to sign up in a day, and they could have all cancelled the next day, but it still counts as good work. You don't know, because people can. You always say to them, it's like, it's your choice to either continue it or not. But that was for the National Deaf Children's Society. quite regularly. I'd have like National Deaf Children's Society. It would normally be a middle-aged man. I'd be like, excuse me, have you got a minute to stop? Be like, sorry, mate, can't hear you. Sorry, can't hear you. I can't hear you. And I was just like, all right, you're making fun of deaf children there, mate. So
that's clever. We're real highbrow humor, and like that's awesome.
You know, people think they're the first guy on earth to come up with that joke as well, which is so funny about crappy kind of crappy jobs where you hear the same stuff every day. To be like, oh, that's really good, dude.
LOL. Can I get $5 from you or £5? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did that for a little while. How many customer service jobs have you had total?
I think that's it. I think those. I think those are all kind of customer service jobs. I've coached soccer before. Does that count?
Oh, that's fun. I mean, yeah, I guess.
Kind of. Yeah, I've coached soccer before to children.
You got to deal with parents. Fun. Oh, for sure. That's customer service. Blah.
You got to deal with parents. Deal with a lot of parents who
think their kid's the best.
Yeah, and you have to just be like, I'm being as nice as possible, but your kid is not going to make it. Bro, I can tell. At 5 years of age, the guy who's picking up dandelions is not going to make it as a pro soccer player. But it's interesting because I have a son now, so I'm like, and I love soccer, but I really don't. I just want him to just be happy, genuinely. But like, it's funny when these guys are on the sideline. Go on, score the goal, and you're like, dude, just let the kid just have fun. If he wants to do it, he'll do it himself. You shouting at him is not gonna.
Yeah, I read a statistic about, I mean, this is going to be sad, but, well, not sad, but it's just reality is that, there's all these under 5 leagues. And then, as you go up in school, every high school theoretically has some kind of sports team. So the odds of you being involved in sports on some level, regardless of your abilities, are high. College, it gets narrower because it's more competitive. And then the percentage of drop off after college is astronomical. So do you really want to ruin your child's, I mean, I get it. If they're a prodigy and you see a Simone Biles in them, you're like, you're going to live at that gym because you are so good. But short of that, you're trading I probably should be careful how I say this. I'll say it this way. I know someone with a child who has a classmate whose father, after they have soccer practice, does drills with her for 2.5 hours in the yard when they get home. They're 10. Like,
it's very funny because I actually have a new joke that I isn't quite ready yet, but the premise is basically, because I love watching sports documentaries, but every sports documentary, they'll talk about a really tough time in their career, and they'll always say, it was really tough, but I just thought back to when I was a kid and my dad would scream at me, I was rubbish, I'm not good enough. They'd lock me in the basement, they'd cover me in honey, they'd release a bear to attack me, they'd punch me in the face, all this stuff. And then I used to think, if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't be tough enough to deal with this. But then I realized there must be 1 billion children, 1 billion humans on this planet whose dads did that to them, and they just aren't a professional athlete, and they just hate their dad.
Yup.
It's just all it is. They're just not at the Super Bowl. They're just in therapy 4 times a week. But it's just, so that's why it's just like not worth it, is it? You just go, just let them have fun.
Yeah, well, if you watch David Beckham's documentary, he talks about that.
That's exactly what inspired the observation, because his dad's that thing, because his dad thinks he's right because his son's a pro. And you're like,
I got the results, baby. Yeah. Oh, if that were the metric. Okay, so I want to make sure we get through these questions because you have to. Okay, so what was your favorite job of all of the customer service jobs you've had? Customer service jobs.
My favorite. I mean, I actually think delivering mobile phones.
Of course. Yeah. So fun. I'd want to do that today. Job. Yeah.
I wish that was still a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
There's got
maybe going on quests.
Yeah, you are.
Being a courier, I think kind of. I don't know. There might be some professional couriers that listen to. That's quite fun actually. You're on a bike. You're hitting you're in your own zone. Like I said, I like people, but like the great thing about that is you never really have a bad interaction apart from people trying to mug you.
Yeah, for your £5.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Oh,
that would have been mine too. I mean, I think just you're doing what is a legal activity, and it's so you're not like running drugs where you're scared. It's like, no, I'm just bringing phones to people that want to talk to their families. Theoretically, like what a cool. I love that. Okay, what was your least favorite of all the jobs? It has to be the Gap.
I think the Gap. The Gap I did the longest.
Oh, well, maybe the pub then. I'll just not answer for you. I'm sorry.
It's the Gap or the pub. It's the Gap or the pub. I think it's like if I'd worked in a different bar, I wouldn't have hated bar work as much.
Sure.
I think it's very like bar dependent.
Yeah.
But you know what? Actually, I did hate do you know what I hated was the regulars,
Oh, sure.
because regulars think
They
'cause
own it.
drink there all the time that you own it, and we're going to stay in later. It's like, no, go away.
Yeah.
I want to go home. I don't care if you hate your family.
Yeah.
Go home as well, mate.
Yeah. This
So
is my
actually,
job.
I think maybe that actually, because the people that were your mates that you were, there was calculated. They were like, if I'm friendly to him, then I'll get to stay an extra 15 minutes. It's like, no, go away, mate. But yeah, that or the Gap. Maybe the Gap. I'm actually gonna say Gap. I'm gonna say the Gap, because even amongst that, you would sometimes have some funny banter with. You never have a funny interaction with anyone at the Gap.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and once an American tipped me £2 when I worked at the Tabard. So, and that you never got a tip at the
Ooh.
Gap. So
Yeah, you sure didn't. Okay. What's the weirdest thing you've been asked to do whilst on the clock at any of these jobs?
weirdest thing. That's a tough question. What's the weirdest thing?
You can loop comedy into this answer if you would like. If there's anything weird you've been asked to do on stage or any of that, or by a comedy club.
Do you know what? I'll tell you this story from a comedy show years ago, because this is weird. Someone said the person running the show, I was hosting in London. It's like 10, 12 years ago, and they said this was in the middle of the show. UK, you have host 3 comedians. You have 2 intervals for most shows. After the second interval in the middle of the show, in the first interval, so we weren't even at the end of the show. Someone came up to me and said, a guy wants to come on stage and propose to his girlfriend. Can
Aww.
you facilitate that? And I went, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, that's actually quite a sweet thing. This guy came up, and it's just it's sweet, but also awful place to propose. What a terrible idea when you think about a comedy club on stage, mid-show, not even at the end. This guy comes up and he goes, I just want to say, like Stacey, just like, oh, I love you so much. And they'd also been annoyed. They've been heckling before. I just want to say, like, just love you, and just like, will you marry me? And she just, everyone's like, oh, like, she's gonna go, yeah. And she just goes, babe. And then we're like, and she's like, babe, goes, just, will you marry me? And she just goes, babe, just come down. And she goes, just, will you marry me? She goes, come down. And he goes, I'm only coming down if you say yes. And she went, yes. And then in the next interval, she was crying in the toilets. So there you go.
It was a no for sure. Oh, it's so embarrassing.
Definitely a no. It was a yes. She was like, yes, under pressure, but was really a no.
Oh my God, that's awful. Okay. And now, because you're from the UK, this question is more pertinent for you. Because you don't come from a tipping culture, have you adjusted to the tipping culture out here? And if so, what's your percentage?
I overtip.
I figured. Because we assume you're not going to.
Yeah. Because when you used to serve British people, right, I bet you used to think, oh,
yep,
God,
every time. Yep.
Were they sometimes just not tip at all?
Oh, most of the time. If they are visiting, they most of the time, or they'll leave $1 on like $300 because it's like, well, that's something. Yeah.
So because when people come on vacation here, my British mates are like, what you got to tip them for? It's just the culture, mate. It's just like Japan, you don't tip. That's their culture. Here, you got to tip. So now when I tip always 20%. At a minimum, and let someone else do something really annoying to go down to 18%. This is at table service for food and drink. At a bar, $1 drink. Although now it seems to have evolved to flip the screen round, and are we giving you 20% on the drink? And then that's a weird one, because I don't want to feel. And I'm like, well, then there's that. I was in a shop buying just stuff.
Oh, don't get me started.
And they flipped it. And
don't get me started.
This is not. You don't get tipped for
no.
work in the shop. That's not the rules. But then the thing that I never quite understand is when you order at a counter, like you order at the counter and they flip the thing and it's 18, 20, 22, 25. So some people I know don't tip at all to counter people, but I do tip because I feel like, is 15 okay? Like some people tip 10 at the counter. It feels like if you're the person bringing me the stuff and taking the orders, then that's definitely 20. But then the screen puts a lot of pressure on you.
Boy, it does.
And I'm a people pleaser. So, but I also don't want to feel like a victim here. But I'm saying, like, I don't know, what is the social etiquette? What is acceptable to do when I'm ordering at a counter? I need you to tell me.
It's such a great question, and I've actually been asked before. And during COVID, if I ordered anything, I did 20% because it was just COVID and everything was counter.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'll usually only do, like, if the order is crazy and they had to put a bunch of stuff together, like for sushi, the chopsticks, all the stuff, then I'll do like $5-10, but I won't do a percentage. I'll just do a
Okay, good
like
to know.
how much
5,
work.
$10.
Yeah, like how much work was this? But if it's like when they want it, when you're charging me $9-10 for a cup of coffee, which was my
I know,
experience in
that's crazy.
Austin, and you want me to give you like $3 on top of that. I think, yes, I recognize being a barista is hard. I've done the job, but I think we've lost the plot for the ways that we have quantified things that matter to people, and like that the labor isn't on the shoulders of the business owner. Like it is. I'm sorry. I know that it's a perishable good you're selling, but like there has to. This can't continue.
So
Like-
$1 a coffee
Yeah.
should be the thing, right?
Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, cool. That's the thing. Those screens, it's like you then have to do the enter the amount yourself. And
Yeah.
then you think, I'm
And that's embarrassing. And I'll do it every time.
embarrassing.
I'm like,
Okay,
because
cool. All right.
there's
I need to be more like you. I just need to get over my embarrassment. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to add $1 each drink.
the only reason I'm over it is because I've done the job. And I also know with a turn and burn with coffee, you have the potential to make more money than you do when I was like serving drinks. There were some days as a barista, I walked with $250 with people tipping $1 a drink because it's go, 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 go. And your shift is over very quickly. And that's a ton of money to walk off of a shift with. And so, yeah, you're doing fine. Okay.
I would like I'd be interested. Have your listeners spoken about? I think this is an interesting topic. The correct etiquette on, because the world's changed, it's become more expensive. I don't know. I just don't want to get told off. I
Yeah.
don't want to get chased out of a store.
Just avoid the
That's what
fight.
you was heard as Brit. You're like, got a tip. Otherwise, people chase you down the street in America.
Oh, they do it.
Like,
They do it. We just had a listener letter about that. And yes, and I worked with people that used to chase people that didn't tip. We've lost the plot across just in all industries. But I want to hurry up because I know you got to go. Okay, so have you ever been fired?
Have I been fired? I feel like I've been fired.
I don't believe you. I don't think
I'm
you're.
trying to think. Have I been fired? Maybe I haven't been fired. Maybe I quit.
I don't think you've
everywhere.
been fired. Yeah,
I've
you don't seem that.
No, I think I've been quit. I've quit everywhere. I think
Okay.
actually, I also worked in a PR office like 2 days a week. I hate that. So I just went to the toilet for so long every day. Just kept going I literally go to the toilet 7 times a day because it was just to escape.
They think you're addicted to coke. They're like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, that would have made it actually much better, that job.
Yeah, it sure would have. And then final question in this section: who's the worst customer you've ever had to interact with, or an archetype of who the worst customer would be?
I'm going to put this in comedy, and that is the person who wants to tell you a joke after a show, which is often racist.
Why? It's either sexist, racist, or as a woman, I'm getting notes. People are giving me notes. I don't go to the doctor and give you notes on how to. Oh, it makes me crazy.
Sometimes I don't know if you ever do corporates, but occasionally they'll be like, "Hey, you can for the gig, you can come and sit with the clients and eat before." I was like, "No, I don't want to hang out with these people.
No,
I have to listen to their terrible stories and pretend they're interesting, and then you got to go watch the guys go and do stand up. No way." So yeah, that's my least favorite, is the guy who thinks he's funny that then will tell you jokes, and they're, like I said, they're never good. I've never once heard a good joke.
No, never, not ever. And they're never good notes. Okay, well, now we're going to move on to the good stuff. We hope you saved room for dessert. What was the nicest thing a customer has done for you whilst you were working?
The nicest thing.
This can be a fan too. We've had that answer too.
Do you know? I don't know if this was. I got a date once.
Aw.
From where was it from? Probably was. Yeah, from I think it was. Was having a laugh. Actually, was having a laugh. Someone at the Gap. I was like 18, so I was like fearless, and then I think I gave someone my phone number, and then we went on a date. I don't think anything else happened, but I got to go on a date with a customer. That's pretty good.
That's a pretty great answer. Okay. And what's the best lesson you've personally learned from working in customer service?
I think the thing I said earlier, which is, I think it's if you're just treat your staff with respect, and actually don't worry about it must be hard. I don't know, in a small business, but if you're just worried about saving every penny, then it will cost you more in the not even that longer term, in the medium term, because I think just keeping the staff happy is so important.
It's so basic. And then final question, what's one piece of advice you would give to customers who interact with customer service workers?
Customers who interact with customer service workers. The customer is not always right.
Come on. Come on.
There we go.
That's perfect.
Whoever started that rumor was a liar, because it's not true.
It's so funny because the listener letter episode that came out, once this airs a couple weeks ago, we got someone wrote in and said, do you know the actual quote for the customer is always right? And the full quote is credited as saying the customer is always right in matters of taste. And so there's that missing element of like, okay, if I like my soup 2,000 degrees burning my mouth, you just have to make my soup 2,000 degrees burning my mouth. But if I'm like, F you and your mother and your whatever, the customer's not right, and you could get escorted out. But Marshall Field of the Marshall Fields, the department store, he truncated it and said the customer's always right. And that sort of became their pillar of a business. So that's what changed it. So I had to look up the history to answer that listener's question.
You know what you just made me think of, though, which is almost the opposite, but something that I like a tiny bugbear is sometimes this is fine, but often people, when they go to eat at a restaurant, they go to this person, what should I have? Just like, what should I have? And then they go, and then what's good? And then they go, well, like 9 things are good. Like, then it becomes like a 7-minute interaction. It's like, I think you can go, which of these 2? That's fine. Which of these 2?
I don't disagree.
Don't just open the whole menu up to a server who's like running around, because that's like, then some of us are sitting there going, I'm hungry. My dad's a big fan of doing that, basically. It's just venting about my dad. What should I have?
Although you said you're like him, so you're going to change into that in about 10 years. You're going to start going up to servers being like, pick something for me. That doesn't bother me. When I served, it wouldn't bother me as much as what would bother me was making a recommendation and then saying to them, hey, you may not like this because this has XYZ in it. And them saying, no, that's amazing. Can't wait to try it. And then they take 2 bites and they're like, this is disgusting. Send it back. And you're like, you just cost me 20 minutes. That's when I get insane. Okay.
Hilarious.
Well, Chris, how can people, we talked about it at the top, but I want you to say it again. How can people get your album? Give us the name again. Give us your IG. Do all the promo.
Great. Above Ground Comedian is the name of the album. You can get it on anywhere you stream music from. It's an audio album, but wherever it's good for you guys.
But Apple Podcast or Apple Music is what we prefer.
Best place, apparently.
Apple.
There will be a YouTube video special that will follow, but it's not yet edited, but it will be hopefully soon. So you can find that and all my stuff on chrismartincomedy.com or at Chris M Comedy is all my handles on all the things.
Smart.
So that people don't think I'm in Coldplay.
I love it. Well, you might be. Who knows? Well, folks, we're going to drop your text now. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to help us out here at Service from Hell, we'd love to have you subscribe, rate, and or review the show wherever you listen. It will help us reach more people that need to be schooled on the art of being kind and will be catharsis for those of us still working in the industry. If you want to get in touch with us here at Service from Hell directly, send us your receipts to servicefromhellpodcast@gmail.com. We do always love hearing from y'all. I promise I read all the emails. Remember, if you can't afford to tip, you can't afford to go out. So don't be garbage and be good to people. It's easier that way. Thanks for being on, Chris. This was lovely. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Thank you so much, Kate.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye. Good night.